pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just for the record, we do have Councilman Hogaback and Davies absent tonight. Any public comment at this time? Seeing none, first item on the agenda is discussion of developing a local STEP program. Let Councilman Eckhart take this. This is his suggestions.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to everybody and kind of get some input on what their feelings were. I've noticed that when we've had these STEP programs in the past, that, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we get money from the state to supplement that or to help bolster that program? But it seems like they're pretty effective. And I've noticed of late that we seem to be getting a lot of people driving without licenses, no proof of insurance. But adding that to the success of the program in and of itself, I think that I'd like to see if there's any way that we could do that on a local level and be successful with it, because given the nature of the crimes that people are coming in, it's not just only seat belts or driver's licenses, but these guys are uncovering a whole bunch of, the whole gamut of violations. I mean, what from drugs to drunk drivers to, I mean, it's just about everything you can imagine. But, so I'm just looking for the thought or the consensus of the council, if you will, to see if there would be any interest in doing something like this. Whether we coordinated it with the sheriff's department, or state troopers, or something. That I don't mean to pick on people indiscriminately or randomly. Whether you had like traffic safety programs, where I've been involved with them in different states when we travel, they just pull over the whole lot of you for X number of feet or miles or whatever, and run you through a checkpoint. So that's where I'm at. So I just wanted to see what the council thought and see if there was any possibility that this has any merit.
Okay. Any other comments from council based on that, or?
Well, I'd just be curious for a couple of things. I think it's a good idea, but my concern is how much of a strain does it put on the police department, and what's it going to cost? I mean, I agree, because every time I pick up a newspaper or listen to a radio, somebody's getting pulled over and they've been barred 5 times and nobody has no insurance at any point in time. And it's just a revolving door.
That is one of the things that we do run into. The officers have actually been pretty good. But if somebody has been suspended and they've gotten basically caught driving while suspended at least 2 times, after the second time when they go and pick them up, they actually go to jail. Before that point in time, they probably just get a citation and then are released. Of course, they don't let them drive away or anything, but after that, then they do go to jail. The biggest thing is when the state goes and does this, and they did cut back. We were, I believe, at $4,500 is what they gave us in years past, and it went to $2,500 this year. And what that basically went for was you could use part of that for salaries, or you can use it for equipment. The last time that we did it, we opted to go and put, basically it was $3,000 of that towards a new camera that would replace the camera that's in Unit 1 when we got a new car. We've got the camera, even though we don't have the new car. I am going to have the camera installed in the old car, only because that car is being utilized, and the guys, I mean, they feel a lot more comfortable with the new camera versus the old one, because the old one is videotaped. We've had issues in the past with it not working properly or whatever. And I believe that I might have somebody in-house that would be able to do that. It's not going to cost us anything from electronic engineering to go and put that in. I did check with electronic engineering. We're going to be able to go and mount it right in the console, so we don't have to worry about cords going all the way back and whatever, and to kind of shorten us up. That would be the biggest thing, is the overtime, because mostly whenever we do the overtime, it actually is comp time. So if we ever did anything like this, I guess I would request that it got paid out instead of the comp time, because otherwise we're going to have it. I mean, right now we're having overtime build up because of the fact of being one short, training one, whatever. So that's kind of where we're at with that. did have a nice discussion with one of the citizens on Saturday. I happened to stop in and talk to the mayor, and we are gonna try to get, somebody in some of these streets and go and sit and run radar. But that's the biggest thing, is I was the only one working today. I didn't hardly have any time to do anything because of the amount of calls that came in. So therefore, you aren't sitting there running radar when there's just one of you working.
And I understand all those things, Chief. I think that what I'm looking at, we've seen or we heard, there was a young lady here the other night who was arrested twice within an hour. Come on, somebody's not getting it. But
Right.
the point is, or my position is that if you're driving, let's just say driving without a license or proof of insurance, in a sense, I think you're stealing from me, because I have to have insurance
Right.
that covers that in order to protect my assets, if you will. It's not fair to the rest of the public that we have those people driving on our city streets that have no responsibility. I mean, I realize there's some people that can't afford it,
Right.
and we're always gonna run into those kinds of issues. But is it fair to the rest of the public?
Well, it's not to mention the fact, you have an accident with one of those folks, okay, your insurance pays for it. But we all pay in the end because insurance rates are going up because there's more and more of those people out there.
Go ahead.
You mentioned $2,500. Is that an annual revenue that we're getting from the STEP program now?
That will begin, well, I can't remember, it's weird where it starts and stops. And I'm not entirely sure, but I think this past year's, it overlaps. It's not like this January one. And I can't remember exactly when that ends from last year's, and it might already have ended. But with that 4,500 at that point in time, what we did was we took 1,500, used it for wages, and then used the 3,000 in order to purchase the camera, of which, actually, when you see it come out of my budget, the whole thing comes out, and then the state ends up giving us $3,000 back, which goes into the general budget, okay? We did get that taken care of on the last budget. I had enough money that, combined in my budget that I was able to purchase that, and it's already come out, so we don't have to worry about it for next year. But yes, so the beginning of the new one, it's only gonna be 2,500.
On an annual
So,
basis?
yes.
For
So-
several events,
Yes.
3, 4 a year?
You're talking around Memorial Day, 4th of July, I believe Labor Day, and I think Christmas.
It runs for 4 or 5 days at those times.
In July it does, around Memorial Day, I believe it runs for 2 weeks. Labor Day, I'm not sure, but I think that might be 2 weeks. And then in December, around Christmas, can't remember for sure. I think that one might even be 2 weeks.
So what kind of parameters do they put on how you run the program? The time you have to devote to it, the extra time?
Basically, if you're running it, that's what you're doing. You're not taking calls, you're not filling in or anything like that. The only thing would be is if it was an emergency call.
And you have to have one member of your force doing that?
Right.
At all times?
Yes. For the period of time that they're signed up to do it with, whether it be 2 hours or 4 hours.
And they do sign up for that, don't they?
Yes.
I mean, so we know who the officer is and what their hours are.
Right.
Officer X says he's gonna do it for 3 hours and such and such night. That's what they do it for.
If we do it more often, would they pay us more then, or wouldn't they?
No. Well,
Or theirs is just gonna go on the ones that the state
see,
authorizing?
I don't know how they come up with that. I think that they might come up with actual contacts or whatever has something to do with that. I do know because of the amount, and I really think it has a reflection on, obviously, if you've got $4,000 to spend on overtime for officers to work it, you're gonna write more tickets, okay? But if you only have $1,500 and that goes towards overtime, and then the rest of that, they need to go and be picking up when they're working and not getting paid overtime for it, then it goes down because of the fact that, like today, let's say we were running STEP and there wasn't anybody signed up, well, no tickets today because all the rest of the stuff that I was doing. So that goes against us, and that's part of the reason why it went from 4,500 to 2,500, along with the fact that the state's cutting back the money anyway.
I assume you're writing more tickets, then are those fines getting paid? If the people we're fining perhaps don't have the money to pay the fines? I mean, if we're going to the expense of doing this, but if we're not getting the revenue back,
One of the things that the state has done, which hadn't been the case in the past, is they actually have an account that people can sign up with and then make payments for those tickets. And it didn't used to be that way. You had to pay it. If you didn't pay them, then you got your license suspended. So now anyway, as long as you're making a payment towards that, they don't suspend your driver's license. But that's through like a third party or something like that. So I think that there's more people actually paying them.
so they're actually
Probably would.
probably paying in order to keep their license.
And believe it or not, I really think the ones that are getting the no insurance and the no DLs, there's quite a few of those that actually end up paying them. So.
Well, the STEP program in itself was, I didn't mean, the STEP program wouldn't be a lot different than our nuisance program. If we've only got a certain amount of bodies to do the coverage,
Right.
something goes by the wayside. And I don't think there'd be anybody up here, and I'm not speaking for all of them, but nobody could argue the fact that, you know, you're by yourself. You can't expect to have nuisances looked after and a STEP program. You're barely lucky to keep your head above the water trying to answer
That's
calls.
the way it felt like today.
And your
Today's
administrative
not been a
duties
good
are
day.
not getting done as well. But
Yeah.
that's what happens when you're just
Right.
the only person on duty. I just wanted to get your input or the PD's input as well and see what you thought. I mean, I hear several complaints that people are tired of reading about this, they're tired of seeing it. And I'm not for more government per se, but I think that in some respects we might need more enforcement,
Right.
you know, of the laws that we do have.
I would say that a couple of comments that I received based on this is one, Chief hit on, I did have a citizen come see me on Saturday morning talking about people speeding up and down his street and everything. I was amazed with the speeds that he was estimating they were going, 60 to 70 miles an hour down his residential street. And so that, I mean, that's kind of an eye opener. And it hit right on this. And the flip side of that is I've had a couple people since the agenda came out say, well, doesn't that just mean cops shouldn't be doing their job? You know, isn't that just them doing their job? Well, and I talked with Chief about that a little bit too, and in a sense, yeah, it is, but like what you're talking about, I think you're talking about something more focused. I mean, I would imagine under a program like what you're talking about, the city would maybe kick in extra dollars from the police budget for overtime or.
I don't think that we would have to do this 4 or 5 times a year. It's just the point is that in Hampton, Iowa, if you were to do a complete safety stop, like I've seen them do on interstates or whatever, it wouldn't take but 2 minutes and everybody in town knows where the stop is at. Nobody's gonna go there, but, so maybe that's not the right way to look at it. And I just use STEP program for we don't know where you guys are gonna be at. You're all over, you know, you might be just in your daily routine, but you're still stopping people.
And that's usually the way they do it. I mean, they might be sitting out by Godfather's, they might be sitting up on, around Main Street, they might be up by the pool, different places like that. So, I mean, and that's, what we try to do though is try to get to an area where you're gonna have a lot of traffic.
Sure.
And then sit, because, tell you what, with these new vehicles and the way that they design the seat belts, it's tough to go and actually, get somebody with a seatbelt because it comes down right down across their shoulders instead of it hanging down. I mean, years ago, you could go and tell that 3 blocks away they didn't have a seatbelt on. And now you've got to be like right there. So, I mean, that is the only thing, but I mean, that's one of the big things, the seatbelts and then speed, during driving is what they look for.
Is there any other comments or questions?
I just want to thank you for doing it, because I did have one lady approach me who did get a fine for not wearing the seatbelt last time, just running down to the nursing home, but I said, you went right through Highway 3 and Highway 65. Your odds of getting hit were pretty high.
Yes.
I'm glad they stopped you, quite honestly, because I didn't want to go to her funeral. So, thanks.
Do you guys want to pursue a program like that then? We can move it ahead for a more serious discussion.
I guess I'm wondering, since this discussion has kind of been generated, are there any thoughts that you have as a way to implement, to further extend the program within the department, within the city? Basically, based on what Craig's asking here, are there avenues that you've thought of that could be beneficial?
Other than being full staffed, everybody being there, I mean, that would help greatly, because, I mean, then there might be 2 people working 3 to 11, and 2 people working days. You know, you have somebody running radar during the day, and on 3 to 11s and whatever, when you have that kind of coverage.
So you wanna revisit this issue and you have a full staff, is that what you're saying?
That'd be all right. I mean, I really feel, you know, if we get to that point that, like the mayor said, we can be doing the job that we normally should be doing anyway.
And I understand that. I just don't think that it's fair to the citizens that we have to subject them to those that don't have driver's licenses or proof of insurance. And the cost, the burden of that is borne by those people that are responsible.
Maybe another avenue would be to encourage state legislators to do something more stringent to those offenders. I don't know what it would be, but
Right. That's a good point.
There are a lot of complaints about the number of folks who you hear on the radio who got no driver's license and no insurance, and then the question is always, well, what happened?
Well, I remember the time I was 13 down there in Des Moines, they went around and checked some of these habitual offenders for drunk driving. They had 9-time offenders that are still out there driving. So, it's not just right here.
And that's what I don't think is fair to our citizens.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Discussion of penalties for habitual nuisance offenders. This is Councilman Eckert as well. We brought that up a couple different times.
Okay. Well, I think that we've had this problem before over the past several years, that we do have certain people that we have continual problems with. And I think that maybe what I heard the other night was we had one gentleman that we've dealt with on several issues, but had felt that he was being targeted unfairly, but in the course of that conversation went on to list multiple areas that he thought were in violation too. So it tells me that everybody's able to see these. I think these individuals should be able to see their own problem, but I think that there needs to be a way that we can certainly speed this process up, because all our police department sometimes gets done is just chasing after these guys because they wait till the last minute, some of them, and then comply. And that's not fair to the PD. It wraps up an enormous amount of time. You give them 5 days, that's the code, right? To abate. And if they abated at 4 3/4 days, 15 minutes before the council meeting, if you will, that's fine, they're in compliance. But if this continually goes on and on and on and on, all we've done is just spun our wheels, and then we go on to the next mess. I wanted to see if there was a way that we could come up to streamline this process, whether you've been cited or given notice 2 or 3 times in the past year, to the person. It doesn't have to be to that property. But if there's a way that we can just say issue a citation, I don't know.
Well, I do think it's pretty crazy. You get somebody that's received 4 or 5 citations and never received a ticket, never paid a fine. Okay? Now, obviously, they're not getting it at the 4th and 5th citation and whatever. And I think we should probably see what we've got on the books, and if we need to put some teeth into it or draw up a new code.
I had one person contact me at the end of last week, and I talked please, as was this citizen. The house next to him was a car that's been sitting for quite a long time, and some weeds and junk thrown into the weeds. And when I talked about, he said that they have been cited, and they're also, now the fine hasn't been paid yet. What's the time frame that you deal with on these?
I'm speculating, okay? From the time that we got, and here's one of the issues. We had a heck of a time going and finding this individual at Home Depot server the notice to begin with. Once she got the notice, she had 5 days to comply. Didn't comply within the 5 days, so I know Captain Hill wrote up the citation. I can't tell you for sure how long it took to get the citation served. Same issue with finding her, I believe. But it has been served, and I can't tell you exactly when she's due for court, but I'm gonna guess from the date that I remember that she might have been served, being South 4th was on Thursday, and I'm thinking it might be this Thursday that she has to appear in court. She will either be found guilty or not guilty, and then and if she's found, or if she enters a plea of not guilty, we'll have a trial date set, which could be, 2 weeks down the road maybe. Okay, so it sits there for another 2 weeks. But somewhere along the line, we hopefully are going to get a judgment from the court that states that that she is guilty, and that she has to have it cleaned by a certain date. If it isn't, the city cleans it for her, and then she's assessed the cost. And I don't know if the magistrate will find her in contempt because she didn't get taken care of, or what.
Maybe that's where the teeth that you're talking about could be if the fines were greater, the assessments were greater when they're in violation.
If I can just interject, I don't mean to interrupt, but just so that you know. Then the other thing is the magistrate will go and give her X amount of time to get that taken care of also. So, and I don't know what that would be. It could be 7 days. With the amount of stuff, there shouldn't need to be a reason to have a whole lot of time.
Chief, I've noticed in the property maintenance code, there's a clause in there that refers to each day that goes by that the problem isn't abated can be a new citation. Is that the case for the situation you're talking about? Can you continue to cite this person or not?
I guess I'm not sure about that. Because there's a vehicle that's parked on the property, and there is like a TV, a stereo, I can't remember whatever else is covered with weeds now. It originally was on the porch. When I talked to this individual, didn't have the paper with me, and then it took me 2 to 3 weeks to find her after that, but I didn't have the paper with me and told her, I says, this needs to be taken care of. Yep, it'll be done in the weekend. Well, I guess I failed to ask her what weekend.
But that might be something to look into, is if you could maybe, in certain instances, write it under that code violation, and then with multiple citations. I mean, talk about teeth.
Right.
That's, I don't know if the courts would go along with that, but.
Well, in this case too, the building that's next to the weed pile in the car has a peak structure and then a lean-to structure, and the lean-to structure, a third of the roof is caved in.
Diane, did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Does noise fall under nuisance, or is that separate?
Well, it does, but it doesn't actually, you don't give them 5 days to.
Well,
take
right,
care of it.
right.
And actually, if you go under, how is that? There's an actual code for that. And then that is a separate charge than what news. We can write a ticket right away for that.
Right. Well, the reason I ask, I forwarded an email to you guys today, a complaint from a citizen about neighbors having loud music and whatever, and they suspect that the neighbors have a police scanner because every time they call it in, it gets turned down by the time police drive by. So that's why I was asking, because these people have contacted us before about the same neighbors, here about a year ago. So I was just curious if that would fall under,
Getting back to this habitual thing, you know, if maybe we don't want to get too far along and nobody wants to follow up on this as far as pursuing a different way to put some more teeth into this, maybe we just need to stick straight to the code. And I appreciate what you've done, because I think you've been very lenient and very easy to work with on a lot of this stuff, but maybe some of these people get no more breaks, no more extensions.
Yeah, become habituals.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have to have a way to identify those type of people, and that's where this all goes back to. If you just enforce the code with no more extensions and no more Mr. Nice Guy, I'm not faulting the chief. I think you've done a terrific job, but I think that everybody plays by the same rules. If you're cited or if you're given notice to abate, and you have 5 days, and you didn't quite get it done, I'm sorry. You know, someone's got to suffer for the rest of them, I guess. That's just a thought.
Right. Most of the time though, I mean, if it's somebody that, and I tell them right up front, you know, you've got 5 days to take care of this. If I feel that it's something that might take them longer than 5 days, what I tell them is you call me, and if you aren't gonna make it by that 5th day, you need to let me know, okay? If they haven't done anything and they want an extension, no way. They have to show me that they've been working on it, making progress in order to get that extension past that 5 days.
How long does it take to accumulate that stuff before we notice it?
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
my point, I guess if we're not gonna have a habitual nuisance offender program or something that we wanna pursue,
Sure.
I wouldn't be in favor of allowing any extensions.
Sure.
You've been notified, you have to operate in a certain protocol and procedure.
Right.
I think they should have to comply in the same procedure. It's funny, you know, the things that you mentioned, these things seem to escalate. We've noticed that for a number of times over the years, and Chief Mulder even pointed it out, if you remember, that these things left unchecked don't get better, they only get worse. And some of these people just don't get it. And I'm tired of living next to it. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't like seeing that stuff. Again, I have to be the responsible party. You expect me to have insurance on my vehicles. You expect me to keep my property clean. I don't think that's too much to ask of your fellow citizens as well.
The habitual offenders you have in mind, I would imagine there's probably a paper trail on them. I would imagine dealing with, you know, citations and maybe not a fine, but a citation. I mean, so that might be a way to identify what you're talking about, with just following the code and being more stern along that line with the habitual offenders.
Yeah, and I don't know what the cutoff point would be, Mayor. I mean, that's an arbitrary number possibly, but if we've got council input and direction, then we know what we feel is fair and equitable. But I don't think that it does us any good to allow extensions for some persons or properties because it's an ongoing issue. I think we have to be careful in how we word things and to enforce that so that everything is fair and equitable to all. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Well, I say this for some of the things that I've seen, like even on Highway 3 or 65, my property and such. I've lived there for 27 years and I know that I live on the highway, so I've come to expect this. It's nothing to have somebody come zooming by at 35 miles an hour and throw out a half a case of cans. Okay, when you're there or not. And I don't know, it goes on everywhere. I've seen it everywhere. The other morning I was headed out to physical therapy and somebody decided to leave all their McDonald's paraphernalia on the corner. So, you know, and then you go out and say, well, that person doesn't get hooked and picked up. Well, why should he have to pick it up? He shouldn't. That's the way it is.
But I don't think that's what we're focused. We're focused more on personal property, I think.
Yeah, but
You know, accumulation of.
I've seen other houses that have been cited, and you look and there's garbage bags with cans busted out and all over the stuff. But there's circumstances for everything. But what I'm saying is, where do you draw the line? You say after we've gotten you twice within 6 months, is that person habitual? Would you consider them habitual, twice in 6 months?
I tend to agree with the mayor. I think that the habitual that we're really looking for, it tells its own tale. I think it's easy to identify those.
That's
How
right.
we write up the.
That's what I was
I
just,
don't
yes,
know,
that's
but
what I was
I think
getting
it does
driving
tell
at.
itself.
Well, I'm a big proponent of what Craig's saying is you've got a law on the books, and like we've discussed, you know, we had a gentleman up here talking about council has passed a law. There's an ordinance on the books, and I would encourage, you know, you folks to study that and take a look at that, and if there's more teeth that need to go into it, bring them to the table and you can vote on them. But otherwise, until that point, I would say that it needs to be enforced as it's written. I mean,
Well, if they go to a magistrate, though, and the magistrate overrules you as to how many days she's overruled you, there isn't a thing I can do.
right.
And I respect the opinion of the magistrate.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with
I
that.
don't.
We've done our part. Whoever's enforcing that law or running the bench, that's their interpretation, whether we like it or not. I mean, we've done our part. I have no fault of what the judges are doing, but just think that we need to take care of our own business first.
And I understand where you're coming from, Councilman Eckhart. The one thing that I would put out there is the fact that if depending upon the amount of stuff that's there or whatever that needs to be done, if we have given them extra time, the magistrate also looks at that and says, okay, you know what, they have been nothing but fair with you, you didn't go, you know, follow through with it, you're guilty, okay, and it needs to be cleaned up in X amount of time. So, I mean, she does, you know, take care of it that way also.
Well, I think, if I recall correctly, when we started to develop this language for this ordinance, that we looked at a fair and equitable amount of time. And 5 days is far more than what we had considered at one time, I believe. So maybe we should just change it to 2 weeks and say, well,
Yeah.
where do you draw the line? If it's 5 days and we give them 9,
Right.
you know, these people still, some don't comply.
Right.
You know? And I know what you say. Well, I've been aware of the cases where they didn't.
Yeah.
They were cited. They were fined. I know it. Or they upheld what we said, I should say.
I think we're good with the 5 days. I mean, going to the 2 weeks, and the people that we're talking about, if it's 3 days, are gonna wait till the 3rd day. If it's 5 days, the 5th day, and if it's
6
2
months,
weeks,
it'll be
it's
the
gonna
6th month.
14 days. So that I'm
I said that rather facetiously. I'm just saying that,
Okay.
you know, where's the number? You know?
I think that the thing that the tweak needs to come with identifying what's habitual and the interpretations that Bob can put on that and the feelings that he has. And I'm glad that the magistrate is listening to you and understanding that we've already been fair in certain cases. So it looks like the police department and magistrate are working well together in this situation.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, do we want to give some instruction to the chief here on, is there any changes?
I'd like to review it, and let's get a copy of that out and go through it, and then bring it back next time.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this matter?
I think one of the things that maybe we want to do too is have the city attorney go and look at it.
Okay.
See where.
Okay. Got that wrong? Okay. Let the city attorney go through it, we'll bring the code up and take a look at it. All right, if there's nothing else on that, we'll go to the next item then. Review of compost fees and landfill fees assessed on water bills and discussion of potential fee increases.
Yes, I gave a couple handouts. The one is labeled compost brush site fee analysis. This is just a 50-cent compost monthly fee that's on everybody's water bill. This chart basically shows a breakdown of how that fee is charged out per class, residential, commercial, and industrial, and the current annual revenue that it brings in, $10,300 roughly. And then the expenses right below it on the left-hand side, you've got salaries for the compost brush site workers for annual. You've got grinding leaves and branches over 6 inches, an estimate of $5,000. We currently don't spend that, or in the past haven't spent that much on grinding, but in the recent past, with the decision to limit our burning to the small brush and nothing over 6 inches, we're going to be looking at some increase in grinding costs. So this is an estimate of what we think near future grinding expenses will be at the brush site. And then you've got some miscellaneous either for dust control or advertising or supplies. So total expenses around $14,000. So as you can see, we're running shy of about less than $4,000 shy. So some potential increases to that fee. I've created 3 scenarios, and we can certainly run other scenarios. These are 3. The first one is increasing the 50-cent fee by adding another 25 cents. And that first column would change the revenue to $15,500. The middle column, add another 50 cents, essentially doubling the fee, would bring revenues to about $20,700. Third one, increasing by 75 cents, would generate $25,800 in annual revenue. So if we've got total expenses of $14,000, just up for discussion on what, if any, increase council would want to consider. The first one, increasing it by a quarter, would probably generate just enough to cover our expenses with very little wiggle room for any issues that come up or additional grinding related to a storm event or things like that. The middle one, doubling the fee to $1 a month, would provide some wiggle room, but I guess I'm not sure that we need to consider increasing it 75 cents, but it's all up for discussion.
How long has it been since we've had a change in that rate?
That's been that way since inception, 50 cents.
That was when?
2004 maybe? It's been shortly right after I got here, I think. Or maybe it was 2003.
Has it been running short all the time?
No.
Or is this relatively new?
No, pretty recently because of this summer, the additional grinding that we experienced. That's
Well, I think there's been an increased amount of storm damage in that time frame.
thoughts.
If we went to the 50 cents a month, which is at first glance, we've talked about that briefly, but not the figures in front of us. I guess that's what I would look at. How would we handle the excess? Would it be a fund balance that we might use for an emergency storm situation? How would we look at that?
Yes, because it goes into the solid waste fund. So it would be, it doesn't get spent on any other department. It's solely spent on.
Yeah, if we had to have an additional grinding, you don't know
Yeah.
what that situation.
I mean, it's a real positive. It looks like at this point the burning that we have done is very successful, very complete. But I was just out there and there's a big pile of brush there. But if it's handled the same way it was the last time, we've done very effective. It saves that grinding cost. But that's what I would look at. I think give a little bit of cushion. I don't think there hasn't been an increase. I think 50-cent increase would be palatable.
I'd go along with 50 cents.
I'm comfortable with the 25-cent one, just because it gets us back in the black. We're not in the red then. I understand the 50-cent one, that we'd have a little cushion. I'm not sure if else is gonna agree to that, perhaps.
I wouldn't want to see us do any more than what we absolutely needed to, so I guess I would be with the 25 cents as well.
And then if we have something, we have to go back and redo it. That's the only thing I can. There's not much of a room for error.
But I don't know if this is an account we need storing extra money with either. You know, because if you don't need it, you don't need it, but a year from now, if we had a major event and we do need to raise it, we need to raise it.
How did we pay for the mulch turning device that we have, that piece of equipment?
That was a
Grant,
Grant.
SWAT grant, DNR SWAT grant.
That was not an inexpensive piece.
No. I don't recall what that was.
It's about 25 grand,
Yeah.
I think we had 85% of it paid for. We still had to have match, but only about 15%.
Yeah.
I think the city has about roughly 2,500 to 3,000.
Because that's what I was thinking of, that kind of expenditure being where that actually would go if we did the 50 cents. But I'm not set on that either.
The chipper we utilize is, I understand it's in pretty tough shape.
Chipper's in rough shape. The building that's out there is pretty dilapidated.
If we had to replace that chipper, what would that cost us offhand, roughly?
25 to 30.
Well, that's basically a street,
That's a-
other
that's-
departments
yeah.
use it,
Yeah.
that's not just a compost.
But there's still some responsibility if we're using it out there. You can divert funds. I say we wait till next meeting, put it on the agenda and hammer it out with the other two that are here.
Well, yeah. Put an option of 25 or 50 on this.
Yep.
See what the motion is.
Yep.
Last item is discussion of garbage hours of operation.
Can
Oh, yeah.
I, unless you wanna jump ahead, we can come back to
Yeah,
the
no, it's-
landfill fee.
Oh,
We
yeah,
certainly
sorry.
can do that.
Nope, that's fine, nope, let's finish that.
Okay,
Sorry.
and then, I don't know if you recall, during budget time, I was informing you guys about landfill fees that were assessed. We get charged from the North Iowa landfill, an annual fee of about $6,000. And then we also get charged from Franklin County. They assess all the communities within the county for the ongoing post-closure of the old landfill, which I believe is north of Kansas. Back when they closed that, the state required them to do annual review of the facility. They have to pay an engineer to go out, do testing and determine if there's any issues, any problems with the closed facility. They also have to have money set aside in case an engineer would determine that there are, problems. Evidently, they have monitoring wells and things like that. They have to monitor erosion and soil cover and things like that. So this money is supposed to be set aside in case there's a major repair that has to be made to it. And so in recent years, the county has been increasing the charge to the cities to build up that fund and also cover their annual engineering expenses. So we're looking at, currently the fee is about $23,000 a year. So we got $29,000 of landfill fees. And this is also on everybody's water bill, a landfill fee by class. And as you can see, we currently collect about $17,600. This was okay up until about 2 years ago when we started paying out fees more than we're bringing in. So I'm recommending that we consider increasing this landfill fee on water bills as well. So we've got 29,000 of expenses. Our current revenue is 17,600, so we've got about an almost $11,000 to $12,000 shortfall. So the potential increases, we've got 3 of them there. Increase by 50 cents per month would get us about 27,978 per year, which is a little shy of what actually we need. The next one at 75 cents a month increase would bring it to about 33,156, and then increase by $1 would be 38,334.
No, I got one question on that.
Yeah.
Does this go on till the end of time?
No, the landfill North Iowa fee will go on.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, but the county landfill fee ends in 2026. It's a 30-year post-closure monitoring
Okay.
period. 2026 it'll end.
You
So-
need something extra to the grandkids, you know, that's
How much has it increased, like, in the last few years, the 23,000?
The county, in 2010, Franklin County billed the city about 12,000. 2011, it went up to 18,000. 2012, 21,000. 2013, it's 22,800, so almost 23,000.
Where do they get that figure that they raise it? Is this,
Well, the county supervisors have to approve their assessment to the community, so it's a county supervisor decision and approved by them. They get input from the engineering firm that they hire. They get, they have to maintain a certain balance in a fund, and so I think I was visiting with Michelle Giddings. They try to keep that fund at around $20,000 or $200,000.
Well, how do they arrive at their actual expenses that they?
Well, actual expenses annually are hiring an engineer to do all the review.
Okay.
But they don't have $200,000 of actual expenses every year.
No,
They
I
have to have
understand
this-
that part, yeah.
Yeah, this fund's built up in case there's,
So actually, the only expense they have is the engineer's expense for maintaining the.
well, unless there's minor things that he discovers have to be worked on.
Okay.
In visiting with Michelle Giddings, the auditor, she indicated she doesn't think that there's gonna be any more increases in the near future. Quite possibly a decrease, but I couldn't get any type of commitment of how much or when.
Yeah.
So,
I think, well, 75 cents. You don't wanna go to this 50-cent a month increase, cause you ain't covering your bill.
yeah, I wouldn't recommend going with the dollar increase, just because after I did this spreadsheet, then visited with her, and she was hoping that it would go down, so I don't think it would be necessary to go with that dollar increase.
Well, if it goes down, then we can look at it again and lower it.
That's right, absolutely.
Does it have to be in quarter increments?
No,
Exactly.
no, it doesn't.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, we can do something.
Like 65 cents,
Yeah,
you're gonna be pretty close to the money.
Yeah,
I'd much rather not go to 75 because we gotta raise the compost also.
yeah,
I'd rather stay more close to just covering our expenses at this point.
I mean, these are the only two variables we have, the North Iowa and the
That's
only two
right.
expenses, so.
well, and I would
let's try and
think
match 'em up.
you're liable to have less hassle with this one with a surprise increase that you weren't expecting. Because all you're basically doing is paying for an engineer's trouble to maintain the place.
I guess I would just recommend that we keep it in increments of a nickel, just for our staff's accounting process, would
Yeah.
probably be easier. So either, 55, 60, 65, whatever.
I'd go 65.
And if you want, I can run the numbers with 60 cents and 65 for the next meeting to look at for
Yeah.
when you want to make a
We can do
motion.
that.
And both of these fees will have to be through an ordinance amendment, so
Mhm.
it'll be 3 readings but we can get the ball rolling if you want me to propose that for the next meeting.
That'd be fine.
Let's cover it to the nearest nickel.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else on that?
No, that's it, thank you.
All right, now we'll have discussion of garbage haulers, hours of operation, use of balance. I think Again, this was originated from a citizen complaint, caller in the alley late at night. They felt it was late at night anyway. Discussion on.
How late was late?
I believe it was after 9 in this particular.
The same guy that usually did that. As I understand it, the way it was left before, if he knew he was gonna be late, he's supposed to be calling somebody, does he follow that criteria? I'm just curious. I don't think he needs to be in town at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, I think the way we left the discussion last time was whether or not, we just wanted to put a time limit on. Because right now, our reply to the complaint was basically, they're well within
Well,
the code.
the only thing that I worry about with that, if we just come down and say, well, put down a sunset clause or something like that, there are other legitimate businesses that come into town later on at night to visit customers, such as Swans. And I've never seen where they've created a problem. But if you're gonna limit them, how can you not do that without limiting others?
Because we have a separate code for garbage collection.
Yeah, we can try that.
That's what I would say to that.
Well, and you might be right, but what I'm saying is it's something the lawyer's gotta look at and see what he thinks.
Well, and that's the conversation you've got to deal with tonight, is if you want to look into having the attorney.
I'd like to have the attorney look at it, because I don't think they got any business in town. I could see it if they broke down, or they at least do the dignity of calling and say, well, and as far as I'm concerned, if they broke down, come back Saturday.
We've got some representatives from some of the companies that are working for us, so I guess I'd like to hear some comments from them as far as their thoughts.
My thought is seems to be working well now. I mean, we have apparently one hauler that's causing the problem. And we just deal with that hauler first.
How late are you usually done by in a normal day?
Normally, we're 3:30. We're pretty well done and on our way to the landfill.
I've seen some instances that if you've been broke down or something, 5 o'clock, I've seen.
Sometimes if you get full, then you come back.
Yeah.
The latest we've ever been is like 9:30, and that's been once in 30 years that's happened. I mean,
I'm from Waste Management. We're here earlier in the morning. Most of our guys are out of here, pretty early. 9:30 would be well beyond the DOT allowability for a driver to be out.
And what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Sandy Landy.
Okay.
I'm the district manager in Mason.
Okay.
And that, we're all held to DOT compliance, so our drivers aren't allowed to ever work over 14. And the average time for most of our drivers are 10 hours a day. If we were to break down, we would call the city's clerk's office and make sure that customers were notified that we were pushing a day then.
And they start early in the morning.
Yes, we do. 4
Very
a.m. out of Mason.
As you're in town by
By about
5:30,
6.
it's usually before 6 usually they're in town.
Yeah, it depends on the weather. In the summertime, we get here a little earlier, and that wintertime weather days, it's a little bit later. But yes, we are in early. It's important to us that our drivers are safe, and we want them in as early as possible so they have less contact with kids outside, school buses, people leaving for work. So, we try to come in and get the major areas done first, and then so that we're out of their way. Nobody likes to be behind the garbage truck.
Do either one of your companies service the alley between the Coconut Lounge and the old Cooley Hotel?
yes.
There was a citizen who expressed concern to me. At one point, there were some real structural problems with some of the walls of those buildings. and he just made the comment to me that it looked like there were frequent trips, maybe he was doing some bricklaying, I believe is what he was doing, frequent trips in that alley through the course of the week. Was there any way, and maybe that wasn't normal, maybe you, but it felt like to him that there were several trips during the course of the week that went through that alley, and he was wondering if there was a way to cut down the number of trips in that particular alley. His main concern was the buildings are not in good shape and might fall down. I don't know what.
I might be able to help shed some light on this. If you remember right, Scott, it wasn't that long ago, we called asking to have more collection there because of the overabundance of garbage that they've been collecting. So we actually requested the extra pickup. So, and Alicia was gracious enough to comply and have B&L do that because it was getting out of hand. So.
It's not like it's multiple trips a day, it's just several days during the week to keep up with the garbage with the number of
I
apartments.
think an extra collection day in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Okay.
You see, you also have a cardboard truck that goes through there too. So you got a garbage route and a cardboard route, so.
And we talked about limiting alley usage, but that's certainly one that we couldn't limit the use where those folks put their garbage. On First Street.
I know.
More on First Street.
I'm more in favor of setting a time, shut it down, because, bells have been talked to numerous times, and it'll right itself for a while, and then pretty soon it'll slip right back.
Mr. Label?
I made a complaint a year or two ago, the haulers picking up on alley. So to me, that's a public safety issue. 7, 8 o'clock at night, the kids are running across the streets.
In the alleys, you said?
Yeah, but it's on the
during
street
Halloween.
too.
Okay.
You're talking about Halloween.
Yeah. It's a common sense issue. I mean,
I agree. I remember that issue. It seems to me that we addressed it with the hauler that was in question.
Yeah, this is, the complaint that started this one was the same hauler.
Yep.
And that's why I think Scott's talking about, it seems like you've got a problem hauler, not necessarily a problem
I was
with the
gonna say,
street.
but it seems to me that,
Yeah, habitual.
that's it.
Yeah,
It seems to me it's the same one all the time.
sure.
And common sense would tell you that on Halloween, you shouldn't be out trying to haul garbage with a bunch of kids running around trying to get candy. It just doesn't work.
What's a comfortable time frame that you guys are out of town early in the afternoon, well, by 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
What about you, and your collection's done by then also? We're looking, I guess I'm looking for you guys to say, help us with a cutoff.
6,
Does it work?
5:30?
It works.
If you need a number, I'd say 6.
I'd agree to 6 at night. I mean, that's a fair assessment, you know, in the wintertime, it's already dark.
And it's starting to get dark, yeah.
It's
on
starting
the
to
way.
get dark, and, you know, I think that's a fair assessment. And that for a cutoff for being in town, I mean, you have the landfill closed, start ready, you're not taking that garbage anyplace at night.
What time does the night?
4:30. So you need, if you're gonna get there, you gotta be out of town by 3:30.
Are they
And don't
open on
trip.
Saturdays?
Still no.
Till noon.
One other consideration that I might have is, we're on the nuisance kick. You might have a citizen say, like I've had this discussion, well, you put restraints on the garbage haulers, that might put restraints on how often a garbage gets picked up. And so that's, I don't know if you wanna look at that as maybe, okay, these guys are agreeing to 6, maybe you wanna look at 7 or 8, just to give a little bit more leeway in case something happens.
Well,
Cause I think the complaint was after dark.
Yeah, but I think if these guys, say for instance, world worst thing happens, Scott, and your truck breaks down, it's gonna be 7:30 before you get out of town, you're gonna pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll
no.
probably haul the garbage first.
Yeah,
And then send you an email or something, that says broke down, this is what happened. So who's the person we contact on
Who are you gonna tell at that time? There's not gonna be anybody here.
Well, that guy with glasses on back there, he's got an email address and a cell phone.
that? I mean, as far as running your business, you're gonna take care of your business first, and then follow up with the details when you get home.
Well, the thing I'm thinking, Scott, is that way if we do get a citizen complaint that you're out that late, we can come out and say, well, they had a breakdown.
Yeah, I see that.
What about the possibility of just contacting the PD if that
That'd work.
situation happens?
That'd be the
Because if
easiest.
a complaint comes in, it's gonna come into the PD.
Yeah.
And like I said, we've had it happen once in 30 years, so it's not
Yeah, why,
real concerned about it, so.
What about dealing with Bell?
I think we're dealing with Ralph to come out and say he can't be in town at 6 o'clock. And I'm sure he's gonna understand, I think he'll know why we're doing it.
Warning. Limitation.
Well, I think, you mean a warning past this? I think he's been warned enough.
No, morning time.
Like
Morning
starting-
come in?
Starting point.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't hear that part. I don't know, you guys are here at 5:30, ain't you?
Yes, and we would like to keep it as early as possible. Like I
Well, I
say,
don't
we
think
wanna
5:30.
be in and out before kids are catching school buses, or we have school buses moving through.
What time do you get here, Scott?
Between 5 and 5:30, it's nice to get those busy streets by the schools and the highways done.
And the dumpsters by the businesses?
You get out of there before the traffic picks up, people going to work.
Well,
Well,
before
like
people
you
come to work and start blocking some of
Like
those
say
areas.
DOT is 14 hours, right?
DOT is 14 hours for an
So
exceeding
give them a
hour.
14-hour window, 5 A to 7 P.
Yep, that'd work.
Work.
I think we can stay with 6. As opposed to 6:30.
I think 6 PM is really good.
Especially when the landfill closes at 4.
That's right.
How do you know that garbage is even going to that landfill?
Sometimes it falls out on the highway on my car. It's a hazard to fall in the garbage truck.
That's why nobody wants to be caught in the garbage truck.
Alright, I got nothing else. Anything else from you guys? Public?
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's been quite some time ago, and I was not able to go and find the minutes or anything like that. I'd addressed the council, I think it was around February, March, in reference to if we would have somebody that would be interested in the position if they were a certified officer, as far as giving them a higher wage than the starting out wage. At that time, I think I got positive feedback from most of the council, and I guess I just wanted to verify that, because for some reason or other, I can't find in the minutes or whatever where that was discussed and talked about.
I remember you bringing it up. I think that's a budget item. Be better off doing that first year.
I think that's
revisit it.
when it did come up, was during budget times, that's probably why you can't find it in the minutes.
That's one reason we should talk about
And I
it.
mean, and it was something that, basically that we had discussed that, if I remember correctly, that I didn't think that you had a problem with, and it was something that was gonna have to go through the union anyway.
Yes.
I mean, and not necessarily when we set the budget, but it would go to the vote, to the officers, whether or not they would approve it. If they approved it, then, then they could do it.
And it's,
So I'm just asking that again.
you're just trying to gauge council
Right.
consensus of whether or not to even pursue it, to even go to the union with a request
Yes.
like that.
Correct.
I think your question is experience worth any value to us?
Right.
And all the discussions we've had about our dispatchers, our stand has been, yes.
It's pretty much value.
But that doesn't necessarily work in our favor when it comes to dealing with the union and that issue.
I agree.
But
I agree.
the point of it is that irregardless of that, we're looking to, it helps us. It saves us some training expenses, and I think that we all did somewhat agree that there was value to it, Chief. That's as I recall the conversation.
As do I. And I guess, and the reason why I'm asking is because we are getting close, and I do have a certified officer that has 15 years' experience, and that's kind of the reason why I'm looking at that. If we offered him, he's actually taking a wage cut from where he's at, but he's not happy. So.
All right, good.
Thank you.
All right, there's nothing else, we'll adjourn at 7:07.